Well, good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. My name is Tom Smiley, and this is my good friend and colleague, Brian Smith. And Brian and I are both members of the church's Rebranding/Revitalization Working Group. Brian, it's hard to believe that it's been well over a year since we've been in discussion with the United Property Resources Corporation, or UPRC, as they've become known, about the potential uses of our church building.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure has been a fast time, and it flies by. But I'm so happy that we were able to present a report to the Congregational Board a couple of weeks back to outline the progress that UPRC is making with its report and the review of our church. In fact, as you know, Tom, the board adopted that report in principle of UPRC and asked us to proceed with obtaining some feedback from the congregation before we proceed any further with the work of UPRC.
Well, with that, Brian, why don't we show the congregation where we're at now? And what I'm going to do is share our screen so that we can see the slides that the UPRC made their presentation with. This isn't the whole presentation. We're going to do the Reader's Digest version. So I'm going to minimize our images up in the corner there. Then I'm going to put the slide up and there. I'm sure we can see that now. And just so that the congregation knows we have been given permission to use these slides.
Yeah, I think that's great, Tom. I think if we can have those slides in our presentation, and in that way we will be able to provide some information to the congregation so they can be prepared for the congregational meeting, which of course is scheduled for next Sunday, January the 9th. At that meeting, any questions or comments can be discussed. So Tom, if I could just start by clarifying once again, just who and what United Property Resource Corporation is. Maybe you'd like to give the congregation a sense of that.
Oh, thanks, Brian. I'd be happy to. So UPRC is an arm of the United Church of Canada Foundation, and it exists to help churches like ours to make the most of their resources. So they have a specific vision and mission that's focused on the community. And we can see from the slide that UPRC vision and mission takes a holistic approach, and then they look at community first and focus not only on financial stability, but also on social sustainability and environmental sustainability. And this is true for any of the projects that they do undertake. So as you can see from the slide, their vision is to work together to build open, resilient communities that honor the land and create a legacy for future generations. And their mission is to be a trusted partner and leader, working collaboratively to build diverse, affordable, sustainable communities where all can live, gather, and thrive. And they're involved in many projects across Canada, Brian.
So Tom, what stage is UPRC at right now with respect to looking at our particular situation and any potential opportunities for Fairview?
Well, the process of assessing our situation and providing recommendations consists of three main steps, as shown on the slide here. So the first is evaluation. The second is visioning and keeping in mind the long-term sustainability of any projects that are undertaken. And finally, the third step is recommendations and next steps. So far, the UPRC has undertaken the evaluation of our existing financial situation and operations, and they've called it an initial assessment and feasibility study. So for example, they've looked at our annual reports and floor plans, and they conducted a site visit on October the 1st. So the vision for long-term sustainability is ongoing while more research is being conducted as to the feasibility of the various projects that go far beyond just replacing the pews in the sanctuary with chairs. So Brian, why don't you take us through some of the visioning and potential opportunities that UPRC have come up with so far?
Uh, Thanks, Tom. I would be happy to do that. As you know, UPRC was most impressed with the space and facilities that exist at Fairview. And after reviewing our financial situation and development and reuse opportunities, UPRC has recommended to move forward with the pursuit of establishing a community cultural hub at Fairview, which is centered around our church, of course, and the Fairview Community Center concept. As I said, the church, of course, will continue to be the principal use of our building. As many know, we presently accommodate an AA meeting space. We have exercise classes for seniors, and the guides are there, and the Domino Club. It is hoped that we can expand our community outreach beyond what it is now to include uses that may be things such as a daycare center, meeting rooms for day seminars, possibly a music venue related to our existing music program at Fairview. There may well be other community uses that we can identify as we move forward. But the one thing I want to specifically note that any use that is proposed will need to fit a protocol that the Congregational Board will be developing to ensure that all uses are appropriate for Fairview and our mission. As UPRC has identified, we have excellent spaces in our building, but we need to better utilize those spaces if we are going to realize other opportunities and some more financial return. We have spoken previously about removing the pews in the sanctuary and replacing them with comfortable chairs. That will provide greater flexibility for uses to permit maybe meeting spaces, day seminars, and even exercise classes. In addition, and this is interesting too, because we discussed this, in addition, our kitchen may need to be improved, washrooms updated beyond what they are already, and guess what? Air conditioning installed. That may be necessary too. But you know, it really isn't just about having physical space for other uses. There's also the implication of possible need for additional staff and determining if our congregation has the desire and maybe the energy to take on more challenges. But an idea Tom had was that we could get or have UPRC address what staffing implications may arise out of any of their proposal and include that in the funding that UPRC will provide. So as you can see, all of these are very important questions and issues that need to be answered in the subsequent stages of UPR's review and its final report.
Well, that's all great, Brian, but how are we going to be able to finance all of this?
Well, Tom, that's the $64,000 question, isn't it? I'm sure everyone's interested in this. I guess to start out, I just want to say to date, there has been no financial cost to the church for the work UPRC has undertaken. If we decide to move forward with the next phases of UPRC's proposed work, there again will be no cost to the church. It will be undertaken and paid for entirely by UPRC. Any eventual costs, such as removal of the pews, purchase of the chairs, updating the kitchen, washrooms and air conditioning, etc., will again all be financed by UPRC. The details and the structuring of that financing will be contained in the final phase of the UPRC report. The monies required for necessary improvements will be considered as a type of lien on the value of the church, not to be paid, sorry, and only to be, not to be paid if and when Fairview ever closes. it is not a reverse mortgage, but it has some of the attributes of one, in that we get to use the existing equity in the church to fund any necessary improvements. I really want to emphasize, however, that a significant amount of due diligence will be undertaken by UPRC during the next phases of their work. They want to ensure that what is undertaken is both viable and sustainable, both now and into the future. UPRC has said they will not invest in something that has questionable chances of success. There is one small proviso to the funding, and that is UPRC has advised that if we do make a financial profit from our venture, and we have every intention of doing so, that UPRC may require 5 or 10% of that profit to be paid back to UPRC as that profit presents itself. But the important point is the 90 or 95% of profit will be put back into the church to help us run the church and serve our mission.
Brian, that's great, but I know a lot of people aren't really comfortable with change. Why can't we just stay the way we are?
Well, that's a good question too, Tom. And I know that some people may find this project overwhelming to some, others it might be concerning. And some may feel, why can't we just stay the way we are? Wouldn't it be easier? Well, staying as we are may not set the best course for the future. As we know, Fairview, like many mainline churches, is made up of an aging congregation. We have few new members and even fewer youth. Active membership is dropping as people age, and we all know that. Also, like many other churches, we are in need of financial help to continue to do the work of the church. We have made some pretty good progress in sort of helping to solve our financial issues by moving to a part-time or half-time minister, by reworking staff hours, and by ramping up volunteer involvement. And on that note of volunteers, we have some great volunteers in this church. And I hope we're able to continue that. But all of this may not be enough for the future and the viability of Fairview, especially if we continue to have declining active membership. I want to emphasize that what UPRC is proposing and wants to further investigate represents a new and enhanced direction for Fairview. It represents an exciting opportunity to explore and expand our community outreach, hopefully attract new members, and to continue the work of the church, all with a plan that is sustainable and viable. Done successfully, this project will establish a positive legacy for Fairview. Tom, I think perhaps now is the time to let the congregation in on what the most recent recommendations from UPRC is.
Well, Brian, as seen from the slide, the UPRC is recommending that we move forward with the pursuit of the community cultural hub concept with the possible inclusion of a daycare tenant. So as stated earlier, we received positive feedback from the board, and next steps are to receive feedback from the congregation, which we'll be happy to receive by email or phone call to the office, or through communication with Brian and myself, and of course at the congregational meeting after the service on Sunday, January 9th, whether that be partially live and virtual or virtual only. So if the congregation does decide to move forward with the process, the UPRC will continue with due diligence and undertake activities like market research, communication strategies, renovation analysis and costing, and financial analysis, to further assess the feasibility of these recommendations. We'll ensure that the congregation is updated throughout the process, and we will encourage consultation. So Brian, why don't you give us a few ideas on how we can prepare for our congregational meeting next week?
Okay, Tom. So I think what we'll do is we'll have our office administrator, Elizabeth, place this presentation on our website for you to review, anyone to review. And for those who don't have access to a computer, we can print you off a copy of what we have talked about today. Whatever the method you choose, please review the information and contact us via the office if you need further information or any clarification. We really want everyone to be as informed as possible and to be able to give the consideration that is due before we decide and you decide whether or not to embark further on this important journey for Fairview. Thanks to you all for listening.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Brian.